All righty then. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of You, Me, and ICED. I'm Dedra Stevenson, your hostess, and I'm really excited about the subject we have today. But first, I'd like to introduce you to the wonderful people beside me. I'll start with my one and only co-host today, Richard Dee. Hi, Richard. Do you want to tell the
Hello,
people
good
a little
afternoon.
about you?
Yeah, okay. I'm an author of science fiction and steampunk novels. 18 at the moment, and another one that's very nearly finished. I live in England, in Brixham, in South Devon, and I've known Dedra for several years now. I've read most of her books, I think, and I've enjoyed them all.
Oh, thank you. As I have read many of Richard's books, and I've also enjoyed his books. They're so imaginative. Highly recommend them.
Thank you.
So now Rodney is not with us today. He is a video game producer and a really wonderful one, but sadly he had an emergency. So he'll be back with us next week. And our illustrious Mr. B is missing this week too, because he's in travels from the Philippines to the US. So, but he'll be back with us next week as well. But today we're very excited to have a wonderful guest with us. Charlotte, you have got, no, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your last name. I'm a terrible hostess. Tell me again.
Charlotte Sutcliffe.
All right. Okay. Now, I know that you have a background in law and in filmmaking, and that makes you a very unique person indeed, and probably one that can comment very well on the topic at hand today, which is courtroom dramas. That's what we'll be discussing today. Courtroom dramas in literature and in film and in television. Why we like them, why they're appealing, and what we can learn from them, and where can we, if we want to write one or make one, what's our advice? What advice can we offer the people? But first, I'll let you tell me more about you, Charlotte. Go ahead.
Well, it's wonderful to be here, Dedra, with yourself and the other co-hosts. I am a lawyer in media and entertainment and technology, based in Dubai. I have a slight Australian accent, but I'm also British background. So I've been living in Dubai for 2.5 years. I work at a firm called CWB, which is Lebanese origin, but Cameron, my boss, and we do the kind of the best media and entertainment law in the region, I would say. So we work with a lot of creative clients, filmmakers, music side as well, record labels. So yeah, I think I am fairly qualified, and I'm a huge fan of courtroom dramas. So I'm looking forward to getting into the topic.
Fantastic. Well, what can you tell me what your favorite one is?
Okay, so I mean, in a cliche way, I actually almost finished Suits, and I've like gotten to the season 6 of 7. Have you seen it?
Actually, that is one series that I've missed, and that's rare for me. I'm a huge television addict, so but I haven't tried it yet. I take it you recommend the series.
100%. I missed the window. I mean, it was a big deal kind of not like a few years ago, right? But then I just thought I needed something to watch, and it's so difficult to choose something that you just like easily hooked into.
Definitely.
And it's so long, the episodes are so long, so you can really get into it. And now I've almost finished.
Oh, fantastic. Well, what was so great about it? What do you think? Suits. I mean, what made it appealing to you?
Suits specifically? Okay. First of all, the costumes and the sets are like exquisite, and everyone looks immaculate all the time. And it's huge inspiration for me working in an office. It glamorizes kind of the mundane routine of working in an office. I think that's one of the main things that appeals to people, because you're like, wow, I can look like that, I can behave like that, it's so stunning, the outfits. The other thing that appeals specifically about Suits, I think, is like they really have a lot of strong female characters, which I love, because they contain their femininity and their elegance, but they are also very strong and very driven, and they hold their ground, and they stand up against the very powerful male characters. So in terms of specifically Suits, and I mean, we can talk more broadly around obviously courtroom dramas in general, but I think they're the two main things that appeal to me. And thirdly, the character development, especially of, you know, like you really see the transition. They really go into delve into the details of their emotions and how they are and their backgrounds and everything. And you see them change and transition. And I think this is a fundamental element in any title, in any series. You really want to see that no matter what it's about. And I think that Suits does that really, really well.
Right, right. Well, and what about in literature? Do you have a favorite in literature?
Courtroom drama, I mean, like To Kill a Mockingbird. I guess that's the main one.
Well, I have to say, I mean, that's one of my favorites too, actually. And in fact, it was quite the inspiration behind my novel. I'm going to do a little self-promotion now. Excuse me while I do this. Desert Magnolia is my courtroom drama, and I have had many comments, you know, comparing it to Kill a Mockingbird, in fact. And I'm very proud of that, because a good courtroom drama, I think, makes people think, you know. That to me, that's one of the big appeals of it. It's a way to really reflect on something that's happening in the culture at the moment. Absolutely. You know, and really sort of shine a light on a problem, you know, in a very creative way. Now, To Kill a Mockingbird and Desert Magnolia, we're focused on Southern justice and Southern, how, if you're Black or if you're in a minority group at all, you may have a harder time getting a fair shake in the South, in the American South. Maybe not now. I have been away from the South for a good 30 years now, so hope things are a bit better. But historically, you know, that has been the case.
Yeah, so it resonates with you personally. And like they say, write about things you know about. And so I guess, although, you know, that was a few generations ago, I mean, it still exists, that kind of culture and that kind of prejudice.
Right, right. I mean, yes, you know, I can tell you for sure that things have improved. I mean, most definitely, but there's still underlying currents of it. It's there. It's right under the surface. You know, it's just that I think a lot of people don't feel comfortable saying things out loud, but it's still there. Trust me. I mean, I grew up there. I know it. It's not going anywhere, not anytime soon. You know, but it's, you know, a courtroom drama is a great way to pull that out, you know, into the open and make people look at it. I think one of my favorite films in terms of courtroom drama was A Time to Kill.
That's what I was going to mention next. I love that movie. And that's got the same themes. It's a statement on society at the time and how we perceive this to go based on our own prejudices or those prejudices at the time.
Yeah. Oops. That's okay. That's why we call it free talk, because we're just really casual and we're just having a really fun conversation. That's what this is about. What about you, Richard? What's your favorite courtroom drama? Do you have one?
Yeah, I enjoyed watching Suits. I've got up to about series 4 there. I haven't actually watched the whole lot. And The Good Wife, I enjoyed that one as well. That was I thought that was pretty good. I watched all of that. And of course, there's a spin-off from that as well, which I've been enjoying. In terms of books, I've read a couple of John Grisham's, found them quite hard going, although technically very, very good. I like the interplay between the characters. I like the idea of logic being the thing that wins out in the end and can overcome the prejudice and all the other bits and pieces. Movies, 12 Angry Men, I remember, which is a really old one now. But that showed how, again, you can overcome prejudice by using logic to put your argument forward. And I think that's the thing that the courtroom drama can teach us, as you both have said, is that in the end, logic must trump prejudice. It must trump everything else because the law is based on it. I've written a couple of courtroom scenes in a couple of my books, and I've tried to make them as accurate as possible by talking to people. I've got no experience of being in court myself, I must admit, but I've tried to talk to people and research it and make it as accurate as I possibly can.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Charlotte.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, in terms of the logic point that you made, like there's a search for truth through that logic as well, which I think people find really interesting. and then obvious narrative that it follows, you know, the beginning, then the investigation, and then there's the conflict, and then there's the resolution, and people can really understand that when they're watching film.
And you can really get into character development when you put 2 or 3 characters into a small space and have them sort of antagonize and set each other off and try and outlogic each other, if you like. Exactly. And you can really build up them as people and develop them in very interesting ways.
Yeah, it's like gladiatorial almost, like it's words instead of weapons, and that kind of resonates with us from our history.
Yeah, very much. It's in the same way that rollerball was war without fighting. Then courtroom drama is gladiatorial without the combat, I guess. Yeah.
Hey, I like that, actually. That's an incredibly good point. Thank you so much. And that's provides the tension and the conflict and the story, in a good story. That's probably, and like you said, without the blood, without the actual combat. That's fantastic. Love it. Because it's not like a medieval sort of trial, right? A trial by combat like you would find in Game of Thrones. Right. One of my favorite novel series. But I think my favorite, you're right. I mean, this is the character development possibilities are enormous in courtroom dramas. One of my favorite movies in terms of courtroom drama is A Few Good Men. And especially that last scene, Jack Nicholson, and Tom Cruise is like, I want the truth here today. You can't handle the truth, You know that scene, right? It's like, did you order the code red? You goddamn right I did. I mean, it's like, wow. I think the entire viewership just froze at that moment. It's like, oh my God, he broke him. He totally broke him at that moment. Nobody thought that guy could be broken, but he really did know his character. Remember how he that was a strategy, to pull him in because of his ego. He knew that guy's ego could not take it, being questioned by somebody he thought was unworthy, to be a U.S. naval officer. So awesome, really. It had me glued, absolutely glued to the screen.
And this is this obvious entwinement between drama, law, and politics that exists. And I think everyone's always on the end of their seat because they want to know, they think they know what the truth is and what justice is. And they want to see if that's followed through in the outcome of the film. Their opinion, or whether it's on the wayside of corruption, which is usually the other side of it.
Yeah, true. I mean, I just watched, I mean, hopefully not to ruin your dinner or anything, but I did watch the Netflix a series Dauber about Jeffrey Dauber with my son recently.
Is that the serial killer that's just come out?
Yes, it's just come out on that.
I'm gonna do it. Is it good? Is it worth it? Because I mean,
it's worth it, but get ready to be disgusted. I mean, seriously.
That goes through the whole justice system as well, right?
It really does do the whole justice. I mean, I think that it's worth telling, though. The thing is, it's very hard to watch, because it's very hard to realize just how depraved, his actions were. But at the same time, it's really worth telling because when Reverend Jesse Jackson came to Milwaukee to get involved in the case, he was there to shine a light on the police corruption at the time, and how the police negligence, of an entire community of Black and brown men, that were Jeffrey Dauber's main victims, were ignored. All their complaints. I mean, he was a sex offender already. He was already arrested and put in jail for a year for molestation, and one of his victims got out of his apartment, a 14-year-old boy, and got out onto the street. And this poor lady, one of his neighbors found him and she called the police. They came and they got the poor, they said, this guy, is he a kid? How old is he? And Jeffrey comes up and says, no, this is my boyfriend. He's an adult. you know, and because he's a white guy with blonde hair, you know,
Wow.
and
So just
he
great.
has such a calm, he had such
Yeah.
a calm way of talking, you know, no emotion, nothing that would reveal, you know, anything, you know, because when we're guilty, there's a certain way we talk usually. We're like, no, 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 he's an adult, I swear. No, no, you know. But in his case, it's like, no, no, he's my boyfriend. He's just wasted, man. I'm really sorry. It's embarrassing, you
Wow.
know, and they let him take him back. They even helped
Yeah.
him take him
Yeah.
back to the
Like Ted
apartment.
Bundy. Ted Bundy was like kind of good looking, so they just kind of let him off.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
weird
See?
that no one would do that, you know. This guy, though, I've seen the trailer of this Netflix thing. It kind of looks like a creep to me, but but he was blonde,
Yeah.
white, like you say, and yeah.
But blonde and white, you
Mm,
know, I mean, and calm, super
mm,
emotionless, super calm, you know.
mm.
And I think that's why he was allowed to get away with it for so long. And the fact that his victims were part of a part of society that it seemed like a lot of people didn't care about, you know, so they were
That
neglected.
calmness can be a huge indicator for a genuine psychopath, right? Because they don't have the empathy, they don't have the compassion, the heart rate
Exactly.
will increase. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, it was good. It was really good, and there was a lot of the courtroom aspects of it, you know, in the miniseries. It was,
But it's kind
it,
of like that kind of thing. It's a foregone conclusion. Like, you know, he's done it and you know the outcome, right? So
right.
there's less mystery, like what's gonna happen.
But then there's this feeling like, did he get justice? You know, I mean, he got 15 consecutive life sentences, you know, because he was in a state that no longer executed the death penalty. You know, Wisconsin doesn't have the death penalty. So, and then you for a while, you go along feeling very unsatisfied until you saw what happened to him in prison.
Oh, okay.
And then
All
you're
right.
like, I know. I mean, you know, it's, and you're surprised at yourself, you know, when you're watching it and you're like, yes, that's right. You know,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
no, Dedra, you shouldn't be peering for such violence, but there's a part of you that just really wanted justice to be done, you know? And
Totally.
yeah,
Like that makes sense. But these kind of characters, it seems like, in my opinion, I mean, they're never going to learn. It's not like, you know, when you look at the reasons for incarceration, for example, and one of them is to prevent them from ever doing it again and to basically teach them a lesson as a punishment for them or in rehabilitation. These people are finished. They're not going to learn anything, you know, like
exactly.
so punishment, you know, inflict the same pain on them if you want to, but it's not really justice in that sense because they'll never really get what they've done wrong. They're just kind of animals, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, they are. They are. And that's, yeah. And you're right. I mean, it's not really justice to give them life sentences. I mean, it's only a drain on the system and the resources,
Yeah.
I think,
It's
of,
to
you know,
keep
the
them safe
money, you
from
know,
the
to,
rest of society as well, I guess, to protect
exactly.
society.
It's,
Yeah.
and it really highlighted how these victims' families, they did not have any closure, you know, because of that, you know, because he was still alive. They had no closure. They didn't have closure until after he was dead. You know,
Mm.
they really, it was really hard for them to move on after such pain and torture, you know, that they
But
went
like, I don't
through.
know. Some people say that a bigger punishment is to have them in jail and to be, you know, locked out from society and treated as they are in jail rather than put to rest. I don't know, but it's a
But that's
personal
the
thing.
thing. He was in jail and he was being treated like a celebrity. Can you
Oh
imagine? He was getting
wow.
fan mail, literal
Okay.
fan mail. People were
Why?
sending him money, saying that they were his number one fan and everything. And I was like, that's so twisted. Who does that?
There's a lot of weird
Honestly.
people in the world. Yeah, there's a lot of weird people in the world.
There are some
Jeez.
strange
So
people about the area. Yeah.
Yeah, like Ted Bundy, Ted Bundy got married. That guy Luca Magnotta in
see?
Canada who killed that student and dismembered him. He got married. He got proposals. He like it's crazy, but there's a lot of sad kind of empty, weird people in the world that would be interested for some reason.
I
don't
know, right? That's messed up. So, I mean, I guess in a way, seeing these kind of series, you know, really does shine a light on that problem as well. You know, what's the problem with society? You know, why do young girls and even young guys, write to, mass murderers like this. I mean, what do they think is so cool about it? That must indicate a serious, cancer of some kind, that really needs treatment, seriously.
Yeah, it's an interesting question.
It really does. Now, have you ever seen a courtroom drama, though, that made you laugh?
Legally Blonde?
Legally Blonde.
And I mean, that's also got a statement around it, a statement on society, putting, women, attractive women, fairly chic, into
just
fashion.
Because she's blonde and beautiful doesn't mean that she can be smart. That's right. Exactly. No, I like that. I was going to say My Cousin Vinnie. I really love that movie. Have you ever seen it? My Cousin Vinnie, recommend it highly. It's got Ralph Macchio in it, the Karate Kid. So yeah, very funny. These two New York students, come through to tour the country. They go through Alabama and they stop and buy some groceries. They forget to pay for a can of tuna. And before they know it, there's cops on their tail and they're getting arrested. And they find out that they're being arrested for murder. They thought they were getting arrested for stealing tuna, in Alabama, and they think, oh my God, what are these laws? They're going to put us to death for stealing tuna, and then they find out that, in the same, convenience store, somebody drove in right behind them, evidently right after they left, in this very similar car and shot the clerk, as he was robbing the store. Two guys that were similar looking to them. Comedy.
Okay.
Comedy, right. But yeah, I guess you could consider that sort of a dark comedy, but very, very good. It makes you think, but at the same time, it makes you laugh like crazy. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, Liar Liar
really got that.
Liar Liar, I guess, would you consider it a courtroom drama? I don't know. I mean, there are cases in it, and his whole job is a lawyer, and he can't lie. So I guess that's the whole concept, but that makes you laugh because it's Jim Carrey and he's fantastic.
Oh, wonderful. I loved Liar Liar. Absolutely. What in terms of any other books that, Richard, you said you had a couple of scenes in your books, and your books are set in space. So were they space trials?
Some, yeah. One of my Andorra pet mysteries she's actually on Earth for this one, but she finds out that her sister's been arrested for something she didn't do, and she has to go to court as a character witness. And she doesn't get on with her sister; they've never got on. And there's a recipe there for some amusement, shall we say, in that one. And then there was another one in a story called Life and Other Dreams, where I had a divorce hearing in the court, and again that was based on suspicions of infidelity and of poor mental health, and I managed to work those things in and try and portray them in a more sympathetic sort of manner, but to try and be realistic with counsel on either side trying to take advantage of the deficiencies or so-called deficiencies in the characters and how the other side fought against it.
No, that's fantastic. Well, but did you kind of change the system in a way because it's set on another planet? Was there some other sort of rules set into place, or did you sort of follow the same way things are done in the UK?
I tried to make it the same way, but with a few modifications that you might expect to be based on case law in the future. So because they're set in the future, then case law obviously is changing all the time. So you can introduce an element of, well, that wouldn't happen now, but it might happen then because this happened in the past, and you can invent a fictitious case and put it into the story to illustrate your point. So you can actually make a point. You can make the point that you want to make by inventing something to back it up. If you see what I mean.
Yeah. Like research that. I mean, that must have taken quite a lot of work. Did you engage kind of lawyers to check stuff over, or did you research it yourself? Like, how did you prepare for these kind of writing these?
I know a few people who are connected with the system. So I had a word with them and said, look, I want to do this, but I want to change it slightly because it's set in the future. Is this a reasonable thing that you think might happen? Is this a reasonable way of portraying a change that might take place? And then you have a look on various websites, not just on Google and Wikipedia, but you have to go to 3 or 4 different sites and try and get a consensus, really. And then you build it up from that. And as long as it's based in some sort of truth, and it's not too outlandish, then people will go along with it, situation. I think. It's got to sound reasonable, but yeah.
I mean, I don't understand half the stuff. Most of the stuff is going on in the suits because it's like the US court system. I have zero experience. Yeah. You catch on to some things. You're like, yeah, that pretty much flies as far as I understand it or whatever. And like you said, as long as it sounds genuine and plausible, 99% of people are not going to understand. There's going to be people who are experts in the field, but that's not the point of what you're doing. It's fiction,
That's right. I mean, even in the UK, we have the English law and the Scottish law, and they are totally different in the interpretation and approach in a court setting. So you've got to try and adopt a middle ground, really, in that something that sounds like it could be possible, and it will satisfy the casual observer. And even if you dig a little bit deeper, hopefully it won't throw up too much that's not true, if you see what I mean.
Right. I love that. There is a lot of research that has to go on, though, when you're putting together a courtroom scene. I had a bit, to do in Desert Magnolia as well. And one thing that was surprising to me, or not so surprising, is the fact that at some point in the 90s, I believe, the swearing in of the witness, they do not mention God anymore. At some point they removed that from the legal, so they basically say, do you swear to tell the truth and only the truth to the best of your knowledge? And that's it.
Yes.
Oath in a court of law, without omission. I think they include that. So it used to be, so help you God, and you should swear on the Bible. But now, because there's an acknowledgement, I guess, which is good, of all religions of the world, but I wonder how people felt about that at the time. I guess that might have happened when I had moved over here, because I didn't really hear a lot about it. I'm sure it was a great upheaval there, removing God from the court. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think you can still choose to swear on the Bible or just like under oath if you want. Or like here it would be like
potentially,
like you can choose your own oath. That's my understanding. It depends on the country, but yes, certainly in Australia that was the case. So
you've got to make it something that means something to people, haven't you? Otherwise, it's just a formal word. So you've got to really try and work out, to a certain extent, what it is that makes them willing to tell you the truth, or afraid to not tell you the truth. So if that's a Bible, if it's a Quran, if it's a Torah, whatever it is, it has to be something that has meaning to them, because it will sanction them if they don't do it, even subconsciously.
Yes, very, very good point. I mean, I think that for that reason it is incredibly important to keep something of an element of that, in courtrooms, because like you said, I mean, it's going to make people feel a lot more like somebody is watching, somebody is taking account, I mean, if I swear on a Quran that I'm telling the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God, that, and then I tell a lie, I mean, it's not just something I'm going to suffer the guilt of that, and I'm going to feel like I'm going to pay for that later on. That's going to be on my record somehow. And that's no small thing to swear on the Quran and then lie. That's considered a huge
crime. Not only are you lying under oath in the court of law, and that's a crime, it's also you're actually lying to your God, which is a bigger crime. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's far more severe. So I think Richard has a very decent point there. So yeah, so courtroom dramas. All right, so because we want to wrap it up a little bit now, let's give people advice. You know, if they want to write a courtroom drama, something happening in a book or something happening in a script, a film script, what kind of advice do you think we could give them? Charlotte, anything to say about that?
Obviously make it well researched because you don't look like a fool. And it's also interesting, and that's the whole purpose of it in the first place. And also, I think, like we were saying before about how it has a gladiatorial effect, it's very theatrical, and it has a traditional theater kind of model structure, you know, and there's the narrative. So it's quite a performance-driven thing. So I think upping that and exaggerating that in the narrative is always interesting to people. Like, stick to the actual narrative, don't drag on. Obviously, in a genuine court of law, it's very boring, and I've been in many situations where I've watched cases and it's not that interesting at all. But in a courtroom drama, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for like the random witness to come out of nowhere. We're looking for like this crazy confession all of a sudden, and all of the wording, the swearing in, all that stuff. It's very theatrical. They even wear like over the top theatrical clothing, you know, the judge with the wig, all that stuff. So I think all that stuff needs to be in there and like, you know, exaggerated in the best way.
Yeah, true. I think there's that to create that tension, and then to give people that feeling like, wow, justice has been done. I feel completely satisfied with the story. With the exactly. Yeah, true. Richard?
Yeah,
anything to add?
I would say that it doesn't matter if what you write is a bit out, because people will be expecting that. They'll be expecting the flamboyant self-defense or the sudden shock from the public gallery or whatever, and you can introduce that into yeah, I mean, it can be boring, I guess. There can be, you know, boring evidence and examination, but you want to have a shock. You need to have a shock in there to keep the reader going and keep the reader interested. True.
I have a suggestion, a recommendation for those of you looking for something coming up. I'm ashamed to admit that I only recently read Where the Crawdads Sing. And I should have read that like 100 years ago or so, because it's wonderful. It's actually wonderful. And a movie is coming out based on that. If you want a shock about something that's happened in a courtroom, there you go. There's one coming up that we can all, you know, look at, dissect, see if, you know, we can duplicate something like that in our own works. I think it'll be a great example when it comes out.
Okay.
Anyway, so thank you very much, guys. I think this has been a great discussion. Hey, Charlotte, how do people get in touch with you now? Is it, or your LinkedIn that you prefer?
My LinkedIn, I'll provide that, and maybe my Instagram as well.
Okay. And as far as I understand, that's going to be in the show description, you guys. So if you would like to contact Charlotte for any questions, that's how you do it. Richard and I, we're always in the show description, so you know how to get in touch with us. And I guess that's it for this episode of You, Me, and ICED. Y'all take it easy, be safe, and I'll see you back next week.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.